That's big business. Hit town, but that's big pimpin'. My potential, that's infinite. Pin game insane. Make hits like King Griffin, a 10th inning.
We're good now?
We're good, man. Let's just start it up.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 23. I don't know how it goes. Our Jordan episode. We're actually going to have Michael Jordan on later. As we mentioned in previous episodes, he's a good friend of Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, who isn't a good friend of Dan? Speaking of Dan, how you doing?
This is how I'm doing, Sean.
Is that Bitcoin?
Yeah.
You have Bitcoin now?
I have. Well, this is a physical representation of it. I do have Bitcoin, but I think the real thing I'm trying to say to you, if you look at the markets and see how Bitcoin is doing, I think that's a good representation of how
It's not doing good. Not doing good whatsoever.
not doing
No.
well.
No.
No.
Wow. So, yeah, this episode is going to be an interesting one, folks. Left field. And if you follow the sport of baseball, outfielders really don't have a set position. And I don't think Dan and I quite remembered that when we decided to do each outfield position individually. So left field is today, and we may have two very different lists ahead of us, which, does have some positives. We could have some debate, which is good. No one wants the same kind of list. But I know for me personally, I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say this was the toughest position thus far. And I think center field and right field are probably going to just, keep making it more difficult each one.
Yeah, so this was, I think this might actually end up being more difficult than center and right. I'll tell you why. I think out of the three outfield positions, left field is the one that has the least starters, where that's all they play. Center field would probably be the easiest. I feel like if you're a center fielder, you're mostly playing center, and right to a degree, because there's a lot of those big name right fielders that everyone knows. Left field is kind of seems like the utility position. Two of the things that I utilize when I do my rankings is going on other lists, either ESPN or Baseball America, whoever does rankings with not just so much stats, but blurbs about the players. And I read up about, how they think they'll perform. You can't search that for left fielders because no one does that. It's just straight outfielders. And they only do the top 10. So maybe there's two left fielders in that list. So it's very difficult to find information on players as well. You look up, what position they play the most of. Left field was by far, if you look at all other 8 positions, the person who had the most games started at left was 130 something. We'll get to that later. I think after 5 left fielders, no one had more than 100 games. Everyone was 80, 90 or less. Wild to me. I don't know how teams were filling. I don't even know how it happened. How could you only have 5 left fielders over 100 games? But like Sean said, it is a high variance position as far as fielding, and we do like to qualify our players that they play that position mostly. This is going to be a shit show. That's what I'm trying to allude to you. If you think I had to have a lot of players on my rankings before, when there's a clear people playing the position, I might have 65 names today. Might have.
Well, do you want to get right into it? Players here.
You want me? Yeah, I'll run through what I got to run through, guys. Sorry in advance. I hope you get some value out of this. First off, I'm going to start out with some shout-outs, Sean. The first shout-out I want to give is to David Peralta, okay? 3 fun facts about David Peralta. First of which, criminally underrated his entire career. I'm just going to say it that way. I feel like no one ever talks about David Peralta, the top outfielder, left fielder. I think there's a point he really was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Hit over 300 a couple times in his career. That's fun fact number 1. Don't sleep on David Peralta. Fun fact number 2, started off as a pitcher. I don't know if people know that backstory, but he was originally a pitcher coming up, moved to being a hitter because he couldn't pitch well enough to be in the majors. So I think for the career he had, after making that transition, that's a tough thing to do. Stop doing what you've done your whole life and then be like, well, I'll try something else.
Little Rick and Keel action right there for those of you who remember who he is.
That's right. I feel like that takes a lot of courage, and for him to be successful at it is very impressive as an athlete. And third, he was the player who played the most games at left field last year. I believe it was 134. Please feel free to fact check on me on that. I don't know why that'd be very important to you, but it's between 130 and 140 games is what he played at left field last year. Second
Well,
shout out.
I can find that for you, actually.
Yeah, if you could do that while I do my second shout out, just so I don't have to worry about it the rest of the night.
I actually already have it right in front of me right now.
Yeah.
He played 137 games in left field last year.
Okay. I was in the ballpark. Second guy I'm going to give a shout out to is Ian Happ. Something interesting about Ian Happ. I bet on him going into 2021 when I was doing my rankings. I was like, I think this guy's going to do really well. I didn't get any shares of him. I never drafted him anywhere, but I had a feeling he was going to break out this year. Performed like absolute hot garbage in the first half. All-star caliber in the second half. If you think the second half is legit and you want to project off of that, we're talking like 265, 270 with 16 bombs in the second half. He could be top 10. He could be an all-star for sure. And that's what I felt like he had the momentum to do so going into this year. But at the end of the year, his numbers ended up being in line with almost every other year. So he could just be a streaky hitter and everything evened out. Even his expected stats kind of say what he should have done is what he did, and his except for his expected homers, which he hit a lot more homers than he was expected to. One of the worst in the league with that. So not going to make my top 10. I think he's too all over the place to project for him. But if you think he's a second half guy, then I would say definitely take a chance on him. Watch out for Austin Slater, another guy that I kind of like, just a guy that I like. I don't think the Giants are giving him a chance to start full time, but he's definitely a possible 2020 guy, 20 homers, 20 steals with on-base percentage upside. Boy, if he got a different situation, I think it could be good. And my last shout out, Sean, is that Justin Upton is still playing in the MLB. I think that's something interesting to mention.
Yeah.
I'll probably end up on Leif's team. Leif, coach, traditionally loves to draft Justin Upton for reasons unbeknownst to me. I'm trying out a little different light here because it keeps getting darker. We are at night here. This is we just recorded the other podcast. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Yeah.
Anyway, getting into people that I have ranked. We have 17 of them. So guys, you thought we were there. We're not there. Number 17, Andrew Mccutchen. I mean, let's clap it up for the guy. 25 homers, 240 average, 345 on base, 6 steals, 3 for defense and leadership. A lot of that is that leadership aspect, but not doing much for you. Mark Hanna, number 16. A little upset by this. I'm a big on base guy. Everyone knows I like my walks. I love the signing by the Mets, so I'm kind of sad he's this low for me. But 19 bombs. I think the power was surprisingly lower than I thought it was going to be. 235 average, but a 368 to 370 on base, I think, is what brings it up. 10 bags, by the way, 12 bags. Had never stolen really more than 2 bases in any other year, except for last year he stole 12 out of nowhere in Oakland. So I'm going to give him 10 more this year. I'm going to say he does it again. Why not for Mark? 4.5 defense and leadership there. Number 15 coming in. Some guys might like this better. Not the archetype I like. Couldn't do much with it. It's Adam Duvall. Sneaky defense. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's like league average. And for me, I would think of him as someone who's awful. 37 bombs though, but a 230 average and a 298 on base with 3 steals. I think what you'll find with me is I'll take the homer upside, but the second you're just getting under 300 with on base, I don't care if you hit 70 homers. That's something I can't live with. 14th, really underrated guy. Everyone always sleeps on him. It's Tommy Pham, folks. He's getting a little older, but he still is like a possible 2020 type guy. I think he's more 15-15 now. 16 homers, 272, 350 on base, 12 steals, decent defense, decent leader. He was on a lot of good Cardinals teams. I like him as a player. I'd like him on my team. 13th overall, heartstrings here. This is going to hurt to say. I don't know, man. I feel we talked about it a couple times in this podcast, how I thought Eloy Rosario was like one of the top 10 outfielders possibly. I'm sure you might have had this qualm too. Numbers weren't exactly what I hoped they'd be. He's had years really it's the expected stats that hurt me. His expected numbers, guys, it's just awful. He's expected to hit like 220, like almost everything, like it's consistently. But he's consistently overperformed that. So at this point, I'm not relying on those numbers. I'm throwing them out. But 26 homers, 265 average. The on base isn't going to be more than 320 really, which really hurts. 12 steals. The defense is decent. He does a little bit of everything. I hope he can carry on some of that postseason magic into the regular season. That'd be filthy. 2019 was his crazy year, and I think I didn't realize that, and that's maybe what I've had in my impression in my mind is like a 280, 290 with a 32 homer guy, and that was Eddie Rosario, but the behind the scenes numbers don't back it up, and that was 2019, so it's tough to rank him higher. Coming in at 12, talk about heartstrings, folks. This guy you'll find him on my team, my fantasy team, and this is Yippee Doo-Dah Day, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. 24 homers, 285 average, 335 on base, with a 5 for defense and leadership. The defense ain't great. Leadership, I can't imagine is. Basically, a little bit better Eddie Rosario. The average is definitely going to be over 280. If you're asking me, he's never hit under it. When did he hit 277 last year? But he's right around the 280, 285 guy for me with 25 homers. And the on base is going to be a little bit better. Love him as a player. I do think he has a lot of upside too. I think there's a chance he completely outperforms those projections. I've been high on him for about 4 years now, waiting for the breakout. Randy Rosarina, folks, not going to make my top 10. Everyone can scream and cry about this. I'm surprised he even got up to 11 when I first looked at his stats. It's not a lot there. He's really a hopeful 2020 guy. And that's saying a lot, like to be just a hopeful 2020 when you think of Randy. Really, the postseason, I feel like, blurs a lot of people's thoughts. And with the 20 bags he had last year, he got caught 10 times. A 50%, steal percentage ain't going to cut it. Certainly not in Tampa Bay with the analytics. They're not going to let him do that again. I have him hitting 22 bombs, which somehow is pretty aggressive based on other people's rankings, because his numbers don't really back up hitting homers either. He doesn't hit the ball fairly hard. His max is, but on average he doesn't. 260 average, 330 on base, 16 steals. I think that's even aggressive too. His defense is decent though. So he's got a 3 for defense and leadership. And Sean, here we are. We made it to number 10.
We
and
did.
That, again, might be a little qualm here for some people, but it's Eloy Jimenez for me. Another one of those guys that I could see in someone else's top 3, if you're high on Eloy. I don't mind Eloy, but again, the on base is at 320 for me. That's going to be bothersome. He's got no speed. The defense was actually manageable last year, but I can't wrap my head around it. Still got a 4 for defense and leadership. I thought it'd be a straight 5. But 32 bombs and a 260 average to go with the 320 on base. It's decent. 32 and 260 is fine. But when you're only getting on base 32% of the time, you don't have any speed or defense, and we're taking like a whole, we're not just doing fantasy here, we're taking like a whole player. There's definitely 9 other players that I think are more athletic and could provide more value in every other category to be worth more than Jimenez in real life.
Well, I don't have quite the list that you do for just missing out. I have Eddie Rosario on mine for the same reasons you do. I thought he had some better numbers than he did, but I think the postseason might have maybe jaded our views of him. I also want to admit this: I did not have Kyle Schwarber on this list, and I realized I probably should have because I viewed him more as maybe a right fielder. When it turns out he played more games than left last year, that's on me. He would have made my top 10 had I done that. So Kyle, I'm sorry.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah, he's right there with Javi. Big friend of the pod. So I guess I should jump right into my 10, and my number 10 is Eloy Jimenez. I originally thought he was going to be. Yeah, I originally thought he was going to be higher on my ranking. The biggest knock for me on him, I guess not knock. He can't really control this. He's not available to play. He's been injured a little, a fair amount in his career. I know because I drafted him last year in Dynasty League, and he tore his lat spring training. I only played, I think, 55 games. For those of you who don't know, I have the worst luck in fantasy. Every time I draft a player, they get injured. Mike Trout years ago, Trey Turner. It's a miracle those guys still play baseball after being on my team. So yeah, I have some bad luck with that. But Eloy, he's still 24 years old. He's got a lot of potential, obviously. I don't remember what trade he was involved with. Was it the Padres?
Chicago? He was with the other Chicago team, right?
These are the Cubs. That's right. That was for I'm trying to think who the trade was. Carlos Quintana, right?
Jose Quintana?
Jose Quintana. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
I think it was Quintana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Rare Chicago trade. You don't see a lot of those. Either way, guy who he can hit for an average when he wants. I mean, he's 267 in his rookie year, 122 games. In the COVID shortened year, he 296. Has a little bit of pop, 10 home runs in 55 games, not too shabby whatsoever. He is a guy who's going to strike out, well over 100 times in his career. So he's more of a modern day player. Defense is god awful. But I think that there are 9 left fielders better than him. And I guess if Kyle Schwarber made this list, he probably wouldn't be on the top 10 for me. But yeah, number 9, Eloy Jimenez.
All right. I feel like we had the same number 10. At the end, you kind of just had to say, well, but if I was ranking Kyle like Dan did, he wouldn't be in my top 10 just to make me feel bad about it. But
yeah, take a little jab.
I have a feeling, Sean, same lists.
Really?
Same list.
That'd be crazy. The most I don't even know unstructured position would have the most same rankings. Yeah.
My number 9, guys. Let's just be frank about things. It's the poster boy today. It's Alex Verdugo. Sean, did we or did we not go 2 for 2 there?
We did not go 2 for 2.
All right, it's over. It's over, folks. But it's Alex Verdugo. Okay. Former Dodger, love the guy. Listen, the guy just hits, okay? 2 of the last 3 years, his expected batting average was between 285 and 290, and that's pretty much what he's done every year. In every full season he's had, 294, 308, and 289 the last 3 years. I think he's going to be about 16 homers. He's not going to have a lot of pop. 16 homers, 292 average. 355 on base, 6 steals. Defense is pretty decent. And coming from the Dodgers organization, I know he's young, but he is very passionate. He's outwardly emotional. And I think he harnesses it well enough to where it's leadership qualities instead of like ex-Dodgers left fielder Yasiel Puig.
I was about to say Yasiel Puig. You took it right out of my mouth.
He borders on that though. They have very similar dynamics where they're very outwardly emotional. But I think Verdugo harnesses it better. He's clearly wants to win. That's huge for me. I like Verdugo, but I do think his offensive profile is a little bit of a new age, the future version of a person who's a little bit older who'll be later on my list, who I love very much, who Sean probably knows who that is now after I said that. Sean, go ahead. Who's your number 9?
My number 9, this is probably a bit controversial, and he's a controversial person. Marcelo Zuna.
Okay.
He is undoubtedly talented in every stretch of the imagination when it comes to baseball. He
can hit.
Look at the stats. What was that?
So he can really hit.
He can hit. I'll get to that in just a second. The guy is, he can hit home runs. He can drive in runs. He really is your prototypical middle of the order guy, 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on what you got in your lineup. Guy that's just going to hit for a lot of power, drive in runs, strike out a lot, but you'll take that with the production he has. And really, I say strike out a lot, but he's roughly within the 110 to 120 strikeouts, which is a lot, but in today's game, not tons. So you'll definitely take that. However, not a very good defender. Really bad defender, actually. Also, a lot of off-the-field issues this past year with some domestic violence issues. Also, not the best in the clubhouse, from what I gather. The Marlins could not wait to get rid of him. Frankly, they got rid of their whole team, so I don't know if that's a fair judgment. But didn't stick around long. In St. Louis, only 2 years, and in Atlanta now, he's done well. I can't deny that whatsoever. But I for whatever reason, I don't know if I don't. Is his suspension's over, right? He's good to play.
He technically served it, yes.
Okay, and he's still under contract with the Braves, correct?
He is.
Yeah, I think he'll have a great year. He always does, but for whatever reason, I think the character issues, the lack of defense, just aren't for whatever reason, just drags him down for me. But hell of a talent, absolutely.
Listen, we're doing real life MLB rankings, and there are definitely, I think, probably 20 teams that wouldn't want him on the list. So that's a fair ranking. Where you have him, I have him a little bit higher. I think I should have taken the personal stuff into consideration a bit more than I did. Just to be frank, I'm looking at some guys here, really, some guys here that I'm about to mention that I probably in real life would take them over him just because of the off the field issues. So I think I probably could have looked into that more. However, diversity, we'll have different lists. Going into my number 8. Oh, this is actually nice. I'm noticing that 7 and 8 are the two people I started betting on after the 2015 season. One of them really worked out after that. The other one didn't work out until this year, and that would be A.J. Pollock. Let's not forget this guy once hit 20 bombs and stole 40 bases back in 2015, was an MVP-type candidate, then got injured for all of 2016. Everyone was off him for some reason, and I was like, why? Between 2017 and 2019, I drafted him earlier than anyone could ever imagine in fantasy because I thought he was going to be the greatest, just the biggest sleeper. Didn't pan out. But last year with the Dodgers, he finally got back on track. 286 expected batting average to back it up as well. He hit 297 with 20 bombs over 117 games. So yes, he still hasn't played a full season since 2015, but you can't expect more than that out of AJ Pollock, and that's why he's at number 8. I think if he were to play a full year, because that's how I do my projections, he'd be at 25 homers, a 277 average, 335 on base, 13 steals, still a decent amount of speed on him. And the defense is fairly decent, 3.5. It's about league average. As is his sprint speed at this point. It's, well, not league average. It's about 70th percentile. So it's definitely above league average. So he'll still steal about 13 bags. But this is the point in the podcast, Sean. We didn't have one last week, but we have the New York type shout outs. And I think you can imagine where I'm going with this. I have 2. One for a New York team, the Mets, and one for my favorite team, he played for my favorite team, and that is the LA Dodgers. New York is Dom Smith, folks. Let's just shout out Dom Smith. I think if the Mets were a decent organization, this is where he'd be ranked today. I think he would fall into this spot as far as left field rankings. Absolute stud. Think he could probably hit over 300 in a season if he felt like it with 25 bombs. Real good hitter. They ruined his career, though. I don't think he'll ever have a good season again. And then going with the other guy, Jock Peterson. Was an all-star in his rookie year. Came up, won Rookie of the Year. Never got full playing time after that because why would he? And it's really just derailed his career. In my opinion, the most raw power in the game still. I know that might be definitely a hot take, but if you ever seen this guy hit a baseball, there's no one with more raw pop to me. You can't. I just don't agree. Would hope to see him in a home run derby again. One of the funnest guys to watch in a home run derby because of that nice lefty swing. Also, I think he would be ranked about here if he was given a starting job from the beginning and was able to grow and face lefties for the last 7 years of his career, so he could have learned to do it. And by this point, he would be an elite hitter. That's what I got to say for 8.
About Dom Smith, I agree. He's got all the talent in the world. For whatever reason, last year he just couldn't hit. I don't really understand. The shortened season, he hit 316 and was actually got MVP votes, and everybody thought, okay, he's gonna take over. It hasn't helped that he's a first baseman and so is Pete Alonso. He's actually a very good first baseman, but the issue with Pete Alonso is you're not throwing Pete Alonso in the outfield.
No.
That's not gonna do. Pete Alonso has turned himself into actually an above average defender. So the only alternative to that is put Dom out in left field, and I think that has hurt him a little bit as far as at the plate. But I hope he turns it around. There's a good chance you're going to get rid of him and trade him, so good for him. But yeah, Jock Peterson, hell of a pearl necklace.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a ring now. He's got a ring.
Does he? Oh, with the Braves. I thought you meant like a pearl ring. I was like, good for him. Yeah, with the Braves, he's got a ring.
Didn't he get one with the Dodgers?
Did he get one in 2021? I don't remember. I guess he did. Yeah, he must have been on the team. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's up to me. My 8th. Are you feeling Randy, baby? Randy Rosarina. I don't often do this and jump on the bandwagon, as you guys noticed, about young players and their projected careers and whatnot. But for some reason, Randy Rosarina, I like him as a player. He does have some similarities to Marcelo Zuna, and that's unfortunate. But I think he's put those behind him. But he has that clutch factor in the playoffs in 2020. Unbelievable. 2021, again, unbelievable. He correct me if I'm wrong, he's the one who stole home against the Red Sox, or was that Wander Franco?
Sean, I don't want to put my balls on the line.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think he stole home, but it could have been Wander.
Okay.
Either way, an electric player. He kind of reminds me of a modern day version of Jose Reyes in the way he plays. Not as fast as Jose Reyes by any stretch of the imagination, but watching him play on the base paths and in the field, he just has that excitement level to him. You never know what he's going to do. As you said, he did, steal bases at a 50% clip, which is just terrible. And Tampa doesn't exactly love that kind of stuff, so I don't think that he's going to get that many opportunities again next year. But he's young. 26 years old, so I assume his age 27 season will be next year. The big knock on him for me personally, 170 strikeouts.
Strikes out a lot.
A lot. If he could somehow cut that down a little bit, maybe hit for more of an average. He had 20 home runs last year in 141 games, so that's a decent amount of pop, 69 RBIs, OBP of 356. I think that he's got all the tools and talent to be a perennial all-star. Will he get there? I don't know, but I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. And the Tampa Bay Rays have a fun team between him and Wander Franco.
There you go. All right, Sean, I've given you and the listeners, so if you're listening, you comment down below as well, 3 hints already about my number 7 player. The first hint was I think Verdugo is the second coming of this guy, but just a little bit younger and slightly watered down. The hint number 2 was I paired him up with AJ Pollock, as in the 2015 MVP type categories, where they were both injured the second year after that, been high on them ever since. And number 3 was one of my favorite guys.
Yeah.
What player are we talking about?
I just 1 second. I did not rank him as a left fielder. Another oversight on my part. I for some reason in my mind I thought of him as a right fielder.
I thought of him as a right fielder as well. I didn't have him. I didn't even rank him until maybe he was one of the last guys I did. 9:45. I went and I checked. Yeah. He played most of his games in left.
So I apologize. He's going to be my right field spot. I apologize if he played more games in left. It's Michael Brantley.
It's Michael Brantley, folks. Michael Brantley, constantly underrated. This is just the kind of player I like, though. All the guy does is hit. Can't help but smile and talk about him. Another great expected batting average last year, showing of 312. That's just what he's expected to do. All right. What did he hit? He hit 311. I mean, the guy delivers. The last 311, 300, 311, 309, 299, 310, 327, 284, 288. Why aren't we talking about Michael Brantley? Why aren't we talking about him, Sean?
I don't know. The Indians should never let him go.
I know. The Guardians, Sean. The Guardians. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. The Guardians. My bad.
No, you're fine. But yeah, Michael Brantley is number 7 for me. Doesn't have much pop, obviously. 13 homers, 310 average, 365 on base. Give him 1 steal this year. Defense is still league average, and leadership, I mean, kind of odd to think about because you have Correa and Altuve, but I've even heard reports of it. He is like the quiet leader on that team. And he's quiet maybe to the outside world, but I've heard that in the clubhouse he actually is like the leader. He's had so much experience. Again, I think he could have easily been the MVP in 2015 probably. Yeah. God, jeez, what a year. I'm sorry. I'm just remembering. No, it's 2014 really. 45 doubles, 20 homers, 97 ribs, with 23 stolen bases. Only caught once, Sean, hitting 327 on the year. What are you doing with that? 200 hits. Disgusting.
You know, I didn't think it helped he played in Cleveland, honestly.
Yeah, I guess. Thank God he got out of Cleveland. Maybe in Houston he'll start to get a little bit more hype. He's 34 now. I think he still has 2 or 3 good, solid years ahead of him. With the way he hits and his numbers, like, he hasn't fallen off. He's not a huge power guy. So I definitely still think he's projectable for a couple more years. I believe also it says 100 here, 100th percentile. So I want to say he had the highest expected batting average last year. And am I surprised? The answer is no, folks. The answer is no.
I mean, I knew he was a good player, but you really opened my eyes to Michael Brantley. He's a solid defender too. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, he used to be above average. He's like fairly average.
Center fielder at one point when he first came up. Yeah. Yeah, great player. I love that pick. I really do. I'm actually surprised he's not higher on your list, knowing you. I like it though. I like it. So the next 7 here. Am I wrong? 7?
Yeah, you're at 7.
7. A guy who I put a lot of stock in last year, drafting with I believe my second pick in the Dynasty draft. Call me an idiot for doing so. I don't know what was going through my mind in that point in time. Christian Yelich. He is my number 7 left fielder. He has fallen off. I mean, he had 329, I believe, in 2019 as MVP year.
How many homers was that?
COVID year, I think 205, and last year was like 248. God, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about that pick.
No,
I know. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, God, I hope he comes back. I hope he has a bounce back year. I've always liked Christian Yelich. He's sort of my version of Michael Brantley in Dan's eyes. Because I saw him with the Marlins. I saw him all the time, and you know, he was such a good player. He just didn't get recognized because in Miami, the only person getting recognition was Giancarlo Stanton. And, I mean, hell, they had Marcelo Zuna and JT Realmuto too, but that's a discussion for another day. Going to Milwaukee, it worked out really well the first 2 years. Signed a nice contract, and ever since that MVP season, has just been very much downhill. Last year, he slashed a 248 average. 9 home runs, 51 RBIs in 117 games. Really nothing to write home about. He did walk 70 times, so I mean he did get on base, but he has the potential, and we've seen it to be a game changer. He's still 29. He's still young. Has years in his prime. Decent defender out there and left. And I'm banking on him bouncing back. Maybe this is more of a hopeful pick. Because I really want him to just help my fantasy team a lot. But I think Christian Yelich is the 7th best left fielder as it currently stands, which would have been crazy to say about 2 years ago at this time. So,
yeah, even 1 year ago at this time, when you took him in the 2nd round last year, it wasn't out of the question. Like that,
No.
like that's where he was going. People thought last 2020 was a fluke. Everyone was throwing it out.
Yeah. That's where it was projected. So I kind of got swayed by the projections, and I was like, oh, you know, how bad could it be? Yeah, it could be pretty bad.
Well, I'll talk about him later. I think I have him a little higher up, so hopefully it'll give you a glimmer of hope when I talk about him. Don't get too hopeful though. The numbers don't even back up. I don't know. You know, it's just so sad. I couldn't. My number 6 guy. I wish I could flip Brantley with this guy. But I took the homer upside and youth over him, and that would be Chris Bryant. We're going to start to get into guys I just don't like. My top 6 is guys I don't like. 7 through 15, love them, most of them. So 26 homers, 275 average, 355 on base, 8 steals, with a 4 for defense and leadership. He wasn't that great in the outfield last year as far as defense goes, sabermetrically, but from the eye test and what I've heard, it seemed like he was doing decent. I like that he has multiple position eligibility. Again, as we've said multiple times on the podcast, when you have to play different positions, it's tough to be amazing at everything. So I'm going to give him a little bit of pass on that as he kind of really learns to be a better outfielder. Listen, his numbers were a little bit better than I thought they were in his career. I've always been a Chris Bryant hater. I've always said, like, the MVP was stupid. He's really not that great. He's a decently high on base guy. I probably would have been a bigger Chris Bryant fan if I have my baseball knowledge now and saw the decline then. Because looking back, I mean, really isn't. I mean, he's hitting 290, 280 almost every year except for the last two, with high on base percentages over 375. So not a bad guy. I mean, he's just simply not a bad hitter. Last year, though, last 2 years, he's kind of went down a little bit. And I have that reflected in it. I think he's going to hit 275 with 26. He's not a 30 homer pop guy for me anymore. I know he hit almost 40 in 2016 probably, but that's just not the guy for me at this point. I have him at 6.
Yeah, he'll be on my list a little bit later. But yeah, you've never been a big Chris Bryant guy, and frankly, I kind of bought into what you were saying. But I guess I bought out because you'll see where I rank him, which is a lot higher than I initially thought.
Yeah, don't listen to me.
All right, so my number 6 guy is the guy you already mentioned, Alex Verdugo, Doogie.
There you go, Doogie up there.
I really like this guy. He's a good player, absolutely. But I like what he brings to the table, his personality, his fire to win, desire, the ginger beard. I mean, he's got that passion.
Yeah.
I got to watch him a lot in the postseason, good clutch hitter. And he's a guy who down the road could really quickly be a team leader. He, for some reason, even though they played different positions, maybe it's just because they both had beards. He reminds me of Kevin Youkilis. Kevin Youkilis was a really fiery guy and was kind of the heart and soul of the Red Sox teams of the mid to late 2000s. And they just kind of seem similar to me. He's a perfect guy to play in Boston.
Yeah.
They love guys like that up there. And he really fits in really, really well. You pretty much already went over the stats. All I'll say is he hits for an average, career 290 hitter, good defender out and left. And he just, he's in a sense, you're not necessarily a throwback, but he's maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe more like 10-15 years ago, a prototypical 2-3 guy in the lineup.
Yeah.
More of a table setter than power kind of guy. It's like, I think 13 home runs last year, which is a fair amount, but then again, he plays in Fenway. So you would expect numbers to be a little bit higher. But I just like what he brings to the table, and I think he's a heart and soul kind of guy. And the Red Sox seem to always have those guys when they're good. I mean, think of Dustin Pedroia, David Ortiz. The list goes on from there.
The Pedroia comp I like a lot. He's like Pedroia, Youkilis. Yeah, they have a lot of those guys. He's basically, to me, he's close to Pedroia actually, production-wise. But he's Brantley he's just Brantley with passion. And I think by next year he'll probably be the guy who's above Brantley. Brantley still has slightly better numbers at this point, so I have him there. But he's Michael Brantley with passion. Michael, I don't at any point want to insist you don't have passion for the sport. So if you're listening, man, know that I love you very much. I know you have outward passion, is what I'm saying, Mike. Outwardly. My number 5 outfielder. We're going to talk about a guy named Marcelo Zuna again. 28 bombs, 277 average, 340 on base, no steals, 5 for defense and leadership for quite obvious reasons. His leadership's questionable, but he's a bad defender, so it brings it down. Just kidding. He is terrible leadership, which brings down the even worse defense. No, terrible leadership, which brings back the slightly better defense, to be frank with you. But the guy rakes. Let's just be frank about everything we're going to be frank about. He does hit the ball very hard. I think if I thought about his personal stuff, I don't want to give him too much face time here. He'd probably be lower. He'd probably be under Verdugo. He'd probably be, at 10, at 9, 10 area where you have him. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, One thing that's working in his favor is he'll probably be DHing for the Braves, assuming they want him back next year.
Right. That's fair.
So we're in the top 5 already. Wow, I feel like we're flying by here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I was doing. I guess a guest and 2 different positions to rank. And
yeah, fair
God
enough.
bless.
Number 5 is, well, I was introduced to him when he caught a fly ball right at the side fence at Citi Field and started waving to Mets fans. And Jesse Winker. I thought he was more of a meme than anything else for a while until he really started showing me he's a good player. He always got fun facts. I have a fun fact. He was born in Buffalo, New York. There we go. I had to incorporate something. But he had a very good year last year. I guess you could say breakout year. He's done well in the past, so it's not like he just came out of nowhere. But this is the highest average he had. He hit 305 last year. I believe in the second half, though, he declined a little bit. I could be off in saying that, but I think after the All-Star break, he didn't do as well. I think he also got injured for a little while. But he made up a really good outfit with him and Nick Castellanos, so they both were formidable, which we'll get to when we go around to the other outfield positions. Has a little bit of pop, 24 home runs, but that's probably inflated by playing in Cincinnati. 71 ribbies, not too shabby whatsoever. 949 OPS, which is really good, and just under 400 on base percentage. So he struck out 75 times, walked 53 times in 110 games. That's pretty good numbers right then and there. He's also grown to me as a guy too. I thought he was kind of a jerk when he was doing the whole waving to the Mets fans things and whatnot, but I've seen some interviews with him. And he seems like a decent dude. You might disagree, Dan. I have a feeling you will disagree. But I think Jesse Winker is up and coming player for the Cincinnati Reds, and at 27 years old. And believe me, I didn't think he was going to be top 5 going into this, and I was proven once again that I am very wrong. Top 5.
Yeah, Jesse Winker's been a guy that I've hated on, not hate, just disregarded for quite some time. I had a very similar realization to you. He's even later on my list. I will say he hit 317 in the limited games he played in the second half, but he did miss a lot of games. So 1 for 2 on that analysis there. Honestly, Sean, you're a Hall of Famer hitting 500.
Yeah.
So congratulations there. My number 4 is going to be a guy that Sean didn't rank. No clue whatsoever he was going to be this high. If you would have asked me, I'd say he's probably maybe fringe, maybe 10 to 12. It's K. Schwarbs. Okay, this is a guy I was crazy high on coming into the big leagues as a catcher for the Chicago Cubs, if you guys remember, because with his offensive profile as a catcher, I was like, this is freaking exciting. This is going to be crazy. I remember drafting him in 2015 to be my starting catcher in fantasy. Didn't necessarily work out, but whatever. How many games did he ever play at catcher in his career? I'm interested to know.
Not many.
In 2015, he caught 21 games, and that was about it, Sean. That was about it. All right.
They had mostly Contreras, so it's
What'd
tough.
you say?
They had Contreras at catcher, so it's tough.
Well, who I don't like. We went over that weeks ago. But K. Schwarbs, man. I mean, Jesus Christ! I didn't even think he was as good as he was. I'm sorry, I'm looking at his minor league stats right now because it won't load for me. But 32 bombs last year in 113 games, less than 400 at bats. He is going to strike out a decent amount, which I don't like. But the thing is, he also walks. 374 on base last year in 113 games. You know what that's going to do to my Willie? It's going to wet it. If you look at his StatCast data, it's a Christmas tree situation, except for the strikeouts, the outs above average, because he's a terrible fielder, and the whiff percentage. So really, all he does is even his expected batting average isn't bad. It's a light red at 265. So I got him at, I don't know if I said his stats yet, but 36 homers, 263 average, 347 on base, and that's discounting a lot of what he did last year with the on base. 1 steal, I think he gets it in there with a 4 for defense and leadership. I like his leadership. a little bit, which helps out his overall defense and leadership grade. But I mean, if you're going to hit over 35 homers with an average above 260 and get on base close to 35%, I mean, you're hitting all the metrics. A lot of guys can't hold all three. You know what I mean? He doesn't have – if he had some speed and defense, he'd be – it wouldn't even be close. But Kyle Schwarber, better than I thought.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I couldn't find a position for. I remember in 2015 in the playoffs of the NLCS, he against the Mets, he dropped like 3 or 4 balls in left field that quite literally made the series, swing entirely in the Mets' direction. But on offense, he's just a guy who's always seemed to hit well, and he did well for the Red Sox too.
Yeah, really well for the Red Sox.
Yeah, then he had a home run against the Yankees in the wild card game too. That was a shot, I believe. Yeah, I like the pick.
Thank you.
So we're on to number 4 now, and I have a guy that I feel like doesn't get enough airtime, FaceTime, whatever you want to call it. Tyler O'Neill. This guy kind of snuck under the radar for me personally.
Don't like him.
And I can kind of see why he did, because he didn't have many numbers, honestly, many games played in the majors until this year. But when he did play this year, 286 clip batting average, 80 RBIs, and a lot of pop with 34 home runs. Now strikes out a lot, 168 strikeouts, which is not great. But 912 OPS. He's a guy who is your new age player, 26 years old, nice and young. I will say this, I don't often talk about the projected stats, but according to Baseball Reference, he's due to have a bit of a regression next year in home runs and RBIs. Not a huge regression, but enough to really kind of make you or catch your eye a little bit. I don't really have too much to say on him. I'm fairly new to him, aside from this year. But he's a young guy. He's got a lot of talent. And as far as I know, he's a very good defender out there in left. So please tell me I'm just false about everything I just said.
No, listen, I don't like him. I really, everyone except for my number 3 guy on my list, I'm not gonna like, which I guess let you know.
Yeah,
that he's top 2 for me.
Yeah, ask the question why you don't like him. I'm just curious.
I don't know, man. It's something about I just
okay. All right.
A lot of those Cardinals, like those Gold Glove winning Cardinals type guys, don't like.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a good amount of guys in major leagues I don't like. I either really like you or no. There's not a lot of guys I'm like, yeah. But I'll talk about them later. Right now, I want to talk about someone near and dear to your heart, and that would be Christian Yelich, who is my number 3 left fielder this season. A little higher than you had him.
I like
defense. What do you say?
I like the way you think.
The defense definitely helped here, which you don't get fantasy points for. I'm sorry. I do think he's still right up there with O'Neill as the best 2 defenders in left field. He also is a 5-tool athlete still. The tools are diminished, but he still has all 5 tools. And for me, that's important to be a complete player. As well as leadership, he has great defense. He still has decent speed. He's not stealing 30 bags anymore, but I think he's going to get 14 to 15. I don't think that's something to sneer at. He still gets on base, as you alluded to. He's still walking. So the offensive profile still there. It's just diminished. Like, he's still just a shittier version of Christian Yelich, who was the far and away best player in baseball for about 9-10 months. So just to fully read off the stat line: 24 homers, 260 average, 370 on base, 14 steals, and a 1 grade for defense and leadership. I think he's a great leader. I think he's one of the top 2 defenders at the position. And yeah, I mean, it's just sad. It's just really the average. I mean, if you can get that average up to 280, but the stats don't. He's still hitting the ball hard. 114.9 exit velocity on his max last year, but his expected batting average the last 2 years is 250 and 254. Before that, folks, it was 303, 306, 287, 318, 315. So there clearly is a change. The only reason I think, and like I said, I'm basically putting him at where his projecting is. 254 is as expected. I think he could hit 260 because he's got some speed. He could beat out a couple hits. I think there is a lot of upside here. I think he could still be the best left fielder this year. I say that because when Christian Yelich was Christian Yelich, Michael Brantley archetype, Sean, high average, not a lot of pop. What happened? Did he put on muscle, or how did he become MVP Christian Yelich? Do you remember how it happened?
Well, he left Miami. That's a start.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure what he did. I know he started hitting for more power, but his average went up in turn, which was interesting.
But what happened was Barry Bonds, right, taught him how to swing differently. Taught him to get on top of the ball, hit the ball, try and hit the ball on the ground instead of getting under it like he was, because he was a ground ball hitter. And when Barry Bonds did that, he broke out for more power. He figured out how to hit. So it was a hitting adjustment that changed his whole offensive profile. What that means to me is that he could easily still have the power potential and athletic ability to do that. Like, it's still within his mold as a hitter, and it could just be an adjustment away. The game is about adjustments. If he can take this off season, it's tough to do that in 2020 with everything going on with COVID. So maybe 2021 was just a layover. If he can make an adjustment this off season, there's an outside chance he can return to some form. It's not age either. I mean, he's only 29.
Yeah.
So I have hope still for Christian Yelich.
I really hope you're right, and my fantasy team does as well. Question about the Barry Bonds. He told him to hit down on the ball.
Yeah, I believe he said he put a tee on the plate, and he said, I want you, or he was throwing batting practice, and he said, I want you to hit the plate. So he's going to throw from the mound, and he wanted Christian Yelich to swing at the ball and make the ball hit the plate. So but you'd have to swing completely down for that to happen, or get on top of it. And somehow that allowed him to hit more line drives. It kept him more through the baseball, which then led to homers, because he had that natural power where line drives worked for him. I don't know the exact science behind it, but Barry Bonds is Barry Bonds. Did a lot of good things in the league. Say what you want, but steroids can only do so much, okay? And it clearly worked for Christian Yelich. So, I mean, hopefully he's just one adjustment away from doing it again. A lot of it's mental, too.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like it's the opposite of what most people are teaching, swing up. You would think swinging down would cause less home runs, but hey, it worked for him. It's very interesting to hear. It's also interesting Barry Bonds doesn't have a job in baseball as another hitting coach, which is interesting. My number 3 is a guy you had already mentioned, Kris Bryant. I didn't necessarily know where he would fall on this list, so I'm not surprised by him being this high. Do I think he's been overrated his entire career? Absolutely, yes. Do I think he's a good player? Yes, that as well. He's a guy who primarily came up as a third baseman, has bounced around the field a lot, and ended up in left field primarily now, which is a testament to his ability to play defense. He's a serviceable left fielder. Now, he's a guy who is a free agent this year. I was curious to see where he goes. But for whatever reason, he, to me, when I look at him, I think he's going to turn it around. Not to say he had a bad year this year. He had a nice bounce back year this year from 2 previous years of not playing too well. But I also feel like he has talent that's a bit untapped, which is weird to say with a guy who's 29 years old and been in the league for as many years as he has been, and a guy who won MVP already. I just feel as though he has another level to go still, and I think he has it in him. But I certainly don't think he's the player he once was. But yeah, Kris Bryant, you pretty much covered pretty well with what you said.
Yeah, better than I thought, but I don't think he's who everyone else thought he was.
Yeah.
But there was a big divide there, so there was a long way for me to come. My next guy, these top 2 guys, Sean, I don't like them. I don't like him, Sean. It's Jesse Winker. Gave Leaf a lot of flack this year for an almost trade he made. He was going to trade Jason Dominguez for Jesse Winker straight up. And I was like, what are we doing right now? Like, what are we doing? In retrospect, honestly, maybe that wasn't that bad of an offer from Zeke. They were talking about Jesse Winker's really good. He's really great. What are you talking about? I was like, Jesse Winker? Who are we talking about? Jesse Winker? Is that what we're talking about right now? A guy who had a random good half season? Is that what we're talking about at that point? Man, went back and looked at the numbers, folks. This guy's hit every he's hit. He's never not hit. 298 his first year, 299 his second, 269 his third with shit BABIP, and then 305 this last year. A little bit of a down year in the pandemic season. I'm throwing that out, but I mean, this guy's hit basically 300. I don't know where I've been, Sean. I feel bad. He walks too, Sean. His on base has been 375, 405, 388, 394. I'm sorry. Is the point of this really is just a PSA? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm going to start liking you. If you have a shit year this year, I'm going to tell you I told you so. Although I'm projecting you to have a really good year this year, but I'm going to tell you I told you there was some batch I didn't like. But if you have a good year this year, I give up. I like you. You're a good player. Whatever. I have him projected 27 homers, 290 average, a 400 on base, 1 steal. Defense is not great. Leadership, I have no idea because I haven't been interested enough in you to learn about you. And Jesse Winker's a good player. He isn't though. It's something about him, Sean. I can't get behind it. Jesse Winker, a 300 hitter. How long has this guy been hitting 300 for that I haven't heard about it? I just don't
know. I'm with you. He had really a breakout. I wouldn't have heard of him had he not had that incident with the Mets for 3 years ago.
But he's been doing 300, 400 for like 3-4 years. It's not even a breakout. That's the problem. It's not even a breakout. He's just been doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go for you. I got to get water.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Jesse Winker sneaks up on everybody. So my number 2 second baseman is none other.
Second baseman?
Sorry, left fielder.
Who was your number 2 second baseman? Do you remember?
Oh, God. I have no idea. I don't remember. You good?
We're good. Yeah.
Didn't mean to make almost choke on that water. Left fielder is Bryan Reynolds. This guy came out of absolutely nowhere.
I didn't rank him.
You didn't rank him?
He's my right fielder.
Okay. So we got Michael Brantley and him will switch. How many games did he play in left field? All right, let me check to make sure I didn't totally botch.
I hope in my soul he's a right fielder.
He played 17 games in left and 137 in center.
Well, I was gonna tip my hat, then no one won.
Well, either way, he is my number 2 left fielder.
You're closer than me. You're more than I had. So, I don't
know about Michael Brantley. He might have not played any games in right, so he might be even on this one. Anyway, the offensive numbers stand up no matter what position he played. 302 batting average, 90 ribbies, 24 home runs, 8 triples, struck out 119 times, fair enough. 75 walks and a 390 OBP. 522 slugging as well.
Filthy.
I literally had no idea how good of a year he had, and I think partially is that because he plays for the Pirates. Obviously, I'm familiar with Bryan Reynolds. I know him more for when he was on the Marlins. Never mind, he wasn't on the Marlins. I'm thinking of a different guy. Either way, he's this is an absolute mess.
Bryan Reynolds was actually the guy. I was going to just say Bryan Reynolds 2 minutes ago because I kept telling Leif, I'll give you Bryan Reynolds for Jason Dominguez. He's 10 times better than Jesse Winker. And I do think Bryan Reynolds is better than Jesse Winker. He's got to be, right? He has to be. He's higher on the list. But, it's not as far as I thought it was. I thought he was, just 10 times better than Jesse Winker. And I don't really think it's that bad.
Well, to wrap up this just terrible my mistakes here, I'm going to say Jesse Winker. Bryan Reynolds is my number 2 left fielder.
And you guys hear more about him next week.
And then not to jump ahead too far, my number 1 left fielder, I hate the pick. It's gonna be extremely controversial.
Who do you have left?
Oh,
Who do you have left, Sean?
you have no idea.
There's no one.
He plays multiple positions in the outfield.
All right, I'm going with. Tyler O'Neill, who I don't like, is my number one outfielder. Great defender. Leadership, he's probably decent. All right, he's got a tattoo and huge biceps. What do you want me to do about it? 36 homers, 274 average. The average is going to come down, folks. I'll tell you that right now. Everyone who thinks he's going to hit over 300, the guy strikes out more than I eat, so it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I can't. Tyler, I'm trying to look up his stats. You guys are going to wait now because this is getting. But we're talking about every other position but left. His expected batting average was about 280 last year, which is crazy given his 32% strikeout rate, which is just astronomical. But he also had a 583 expected slugging and almost a 400 expected WOBA, which is just lucky shit right there. He hit 286 last year. So I think it's going to come down 10 points, right? A little more than 10 points, but that's still not bad. 335 on base because he strikes out so freaking much. His WOBA is way higher, but that's never happened because he just strikes out too much for that to be the case. 17 bags, though. The guy's also fast. 98th percentile in sprint speed. Light up like a Christmas tree when you look at his StatCast, except for the strikeouts and the whiffs, obviously. They're literally as blue as you can be. Again, 2.5 for defense and leadership. The guy hits 35 plus homers, steals almost 20 bases, hits about 275, even with all the strikeouts. The only issue is the on base, which is manageable. It's still almost 340. Is this repeatable? Man, I don't know. The StatCast metrics back it up, which is the only reason I think it's repeatable. Before this, he wasn't great. He had a 195 expected batting average last year. So maybe this is garbage. I never agreed with it. I didn't believe the year he had, but it's just so good, and the metrics back it up. I'm left, folks, with what else do I do, Sean?
I don't think the average casual baseball fan would even know Tyler O'Neill's name, if I'm being honest. And he's the number one left fielder.
He had such a shit career before this.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Shit career. But the numbers back it up. His BABIP was 366, though. So the average could really fall to like 250. I'm being generous with this guy. I am. The power, I think, is legit. The speed is legit. Like, you can't tell me he's not fast. But he just strikes out so much. It's hard to project that he's going to continue success when you're not putting the ball in play enough. If you don't put the ball in play, guys, don't forget, you also can't hit homers. So when you swing and miss so much, it's tough to keep these numbers up. But apparently I think he's going to, even though I don't like him.
Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity then to take one more guess at who my number one left fielder is.
Something just came to my mind. Charlie Marte, Mets outfielder.
No, I was rating him at center, not 7, center.
He was the 7th, guys.
Yeah.
Who, Sean?
Teoscar Hernandez. His offensive numbers last year. You can't just turn a blind eye at it. You good over there, Dan?
Yeah, I went to bed. What about? I hate Teoscar. You know how much I hate. I sat at a baseball game and didn't enjoy myself because of how much I hated him at the game. And he made mine.
What do you hate about him? What do you hate about Teoscar?
Everybody thinks he's good, man.
Number one left fielder.
He's okay. No, he's not better than Bryan Reynolds, Sean. He's not better than Bryan Reynolds, Sean.
Well, let me just tell you. He hit 296 last year with 32 bombs and 162 RBIs.
Yeah. 162 RBIs?
116.
Yeah.
This has been a rough one for us. 116. Cannot catch a ball or throw it to save his life. But he can hit it. Strikes out a lot. Needless to say.
49% of the time. 49% of the time this guy swings. You imagine that? Pitchers. If you play in the MLB, listen to this. Just throw in bullshit for 6 pitches. Guess what happens? It won't be a 3-2 count. He'll strike out. On average, he'll strike out if you throw him 6 pitches. Throw it to second base 6 times. He'll swing 3 of them. I'm sorry. It's your ranking. Go ahead.
I'm done with Teoscar. That was quite a ranking.
Guys, whose list did you like better? You can say neither. You can.
You can say yeah.
Also,
yeah.
I guess I'll do Bryan Reynolds for center field. Right? That'd probably be the best.
Yeah. Oh, you got anything else to say, Dan?
I don't like my list.
I don't like mine
players
either.
on it.
I don't like
Just
mine.
to shout out. I just want to shout out guys that I do like at this point to make myself feel better. Shout out Michael Brantley. Shout out Alex Verdugo. And shout out Eddie Rosario, man. I wish I could have put you top 3 on this list. Justin Upton, keep playing out there. David Peralta, maybe get on the bump, man. I don't know. Let's watch out for Austin Slater. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, as always, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. Let us know how bad our left field rankings were. And please don't hold back. Just let us know how bad they were. Yeah, anything else to add, Dan?
Next week is center field. And don't forget, we said on the last pod, but comment again down below. Who do you think would be the best returnee, guest host, person? You know what I'm saying. Who do you want to see back on the podcast to help us rank? Because we are not good enough. So we got to bring someone back. Is it Kyle? Is it Zeke? Is it Matt? Is it Leif? Is it a new guest? We've had enough of them? Bring on a new one. We got other people. Believe it or not, we got other people that like baseball.
We have friends.
So let us know. That's it.
All right.
Get your hats. Get your effing hats. We'll see you next week for center field. God bless.